What if betrayal wasn't a sudden attack, but a slow burning fire that was always there? What if the people you trust most are secretly hiding the very thing that will hurt you? And what if psychology had already warned us long before the knife ever touched your back? Betrayal never comes from strangers, it comes from those you once held close. A friend who grows cold without warning, partner who walks away without a word, a colleague who turns against you just when you need them most. And the worst part, you never saw it coming. But what if I told you the signs were always there, hidden in plain sight? According to Carl Jung, one of the most profound minds in modern psychology, betrayal doesn't just happen. It follows a pattern, a quiet script written deep within the human mind, and once you see it clearly, you'll never be caught off guard again. So why do people betray you? And more importantly, how can you recognize the warning signs before it's too late? Stay with me, because what you're about to learn may forever change the way you see the people around you. Betrayal isn't just a moment, it's a process, a psychological storm that gathers long before it strikes. Jung believed it comes from the darker corners of the mind, from something he called the shadow self. But what does that really mean? It means that when someone turns on you, it often has little to do with you and everything to do with them. Their buried insecurities, their unspoken desires, their inner conflict boiling beneath the surface. The first trigger, the shadow self, and hidden resentment. Jung taught that every person carries a shadow, a hidden layer of feelings and impulses they reject, because those traits don't match the image they want to present to the world. But suppressing those feelings doesn't erase them, it only buries them deeper, and eventually they come out sideways, usually projected onto others. Think about it. Have you ever had someone close to you suddenly shift one moment? They're kind, supportive, even proud of you, and then it changes. They begin to minimize your achievements, offer faint praise instead of real celebration, or start pulling away without reason. This shift isn't random. Your success may have triggered something they've long tried to hide, perhaps envy, insecurity, or even self-hatred. Carl Jung's idea of the shadow self is one of the clearest explanations for betrayal, because these feelings, jealousy, anger, inadequacy, don't simply vanish, they wait, they fester, and when the right moment comes, they surface. Picture this: you and a close friend have always been tight. They cheer you on, support your ideas, but then you begin to rise. You get the job, you find love, you start to grow. At first they say the right things, but you feel something in their tone, a subtle withdrawal, compliments that sound forced, less eye contact, more space, and eventually distance. That's not random, that's their shadow self waking up, triggered by your progress, not because you did something wrong, but because your growth reminded them of their own stagnation. And that's just the beginning. In the next section, we'll go even deeper, because betrayal doesn't just begin with jealousy, it begins with denial, and what's buried always finds a way to rise. Sometimes betrayal doesn't start with action, it starts with emotion. In the last part, we uncovered how buried resentment can silently grow behind a friendly face. Now, let's go deeper. What happens when those emotions are never acknowledged, when they're never owned? They begin to twist, they begin to poison. A person feels envy, feels inadequate, maybe even abandoned, but instead of facing those difficult feelings head on, their mind chooses a shortcut. It finds a way to blame you, to project all that negativity outward, to justify the discomfort growing inside them. So they begin rewriting the story, telling themselves, you don't deserve it, you've changed, you're not who you used to be. And that's how betrayal begins, not with an obvious act, but with quiet internal judgments that rewrite reality to protect their pride. Imagine this: you've worked side by side with a colleague for years. You collaborate, share ideas, support each other, celebrate together, and then one day you get promoted. You expect them to be happy for you, But something shifts, they grow colder, they stop sharing information, then come the whispers, the gossip. At first, it's subtle, but then it becomes clear they're not just distant, they're working against you. Maybe even trying to undermine your credibility. Why? Because deep down they believed they deserved the success more. But instead of confronting that feeling, instead of being honest with themselves, their shadow self took over, and resentment turned into betrayal. Now, take another example. You've been leveling up, eating better, working out, starting a business, creating the life you want. You think you're closest. Friends will cheer you on, but one of them doesn't. Instead, they start making jokes, mocking your discipline. Oh, look at you, all clean and focused now. Must be nice. What are you, too good for us? Now you laugh it off at first, but then the pattern shows. They don't show up anymore. They don't support your wins. And worse, they begin to discourage you subtly, consistently. It's not about what you've done wrong, it's about what your growth reflects back to them, their own stagnation, their own refusal to rise, and that shadow self in them. It doesn't want inspiration, it wants comfort. Even if that comfort comes from pulling you down. So, how do you protect yourself? How do you recognize the signs before the betrayal takes shape? Look for the subtle shifts, the sarcasm, the distance, the energy that changes when you talk about your progress. Trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is, and don't be afraid to set boundaries. If someone repeatedly belittles you, if they no longer celebrate your growth, then give yourself permission to pull away. Don't make it personal, because it's not about you, it's about their internal war, their unspoken insecurities. Betrayal is rarely loud, it creeps in like a shadow at dusk, and when you understand how the shadow self works, you'll see the knife before it ever reaches your back. But not all betrayals come from buried pain. Some are far more dangerous, cold, calculated, planned. Coming up next will expose a different kind of betrayal, the one that hides behind charm and only shows its true face when you're no longer useful. Sometimes loyalty is just an illusion that fades once it's no longer useful to someone. Let's continue from that truth. Imagine you have a friend who always seems supportive. They praise you, they defend you, they make you feel seen and valued. But then you notice something strange. Every time they want something, they suddenly become extra nice. More compliments, more warmth. But when you can't give them what they want, their tone changes. They pull away, they grow cold. You start to wonder, were they ever really your friend? Or were they just acting, playing the role of a loyal companion until it stopped serving their needs? It hurts, because you thought the connection was real. But what you saw as a friendship might have only been a transaction in disguise. Now think about romantic relationships. The betrayal hits deeper here. One day your partner is affectionate, present, engaged. They make you feel loved. Then almost overnight they grow distant. They no longer listen. They brush off your worries. And then they leave. Sometimes without even offering a reason. And you're left confused, wondering what went wrong. But maybe nothing went wrong. Maybe they were never truly committed the way you were. They stayed for comfort. They stayed while it was easy. Their loyalty was conditional. And once it no longer suited them, they vanished. These betrayals often come from people who lack empathy. They don't experience emotional connection. Same way, for them, relationships are not built on trust or care. They are built on utility. What can I get from this person? How can I benefit? Carl Jung believed that such people operate from a false persona. They shift their appearance, their words, their behavior, all depending on what helps them the most in that moment. This mask allows them to fit in, to gain trust, but it's not who they are. It's just a tool. So how do you protect yourself? Look for patterns. Do they only show up when they want something? Try setting boundaries. Watch how they respond. Do they respect your limits, or do they guilt you into breaking them? Pay attention to their actions. Words can be beautiful, but real loyalty is silent. It shows itself in small things. Who stays when you say no? Who respects you when you disagree? Who supports you when no one is watching? If someone consistently leaves you feeling drained or used, it's time to step away, no matter how close they are. Some people are not built for genuine connection, and the betrayal they cause isn't personal. It's their nature. The sooner you see it, the less it can harm you. Now, let's go deeper. Because betrayal doesn't only come from manipulation. Sometimes it's rooted in something darker, something more hidden. Jealousy. Let's explore how envy silently poisons even the closest bonds. Envy doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, behind a smile. Let's continue from where we left off. Jealousy often wears a mask. It doesn't always show up as direct hostility. Instead, it hides in quiet jabs and passive remarks. Someone might say, "Oh, it's easy for you to get in shape. You have all the time in the world." It sounds harmless, even friendly, but the message underneath is meant to make you question yourself, to slowly chip away at your confidence. Not with loud insults, but with steady pressure. Then the silence begins. A jealous person may suddenly become distant. They stop responding to your texts. They exclude you from group plans. They ignore your good news. Why? Because your success is a mirror, and in that mirror they see their own frustration, their own lack. Instead of confronting those insecurities, they distance themselves from you, or worse, they betray you in silence. Picture this. You and a co-worker start at the same company. You both begin with hope and ambition. You work hard, take initiative, earn your promotion. Instead of cheering for you, your colleague starts whispering. They say the boss favors you. They downplay your work in meetings. They smile to your face, but behind closed doors, they undermine your credibility. That's not just envy. That's betrayal taking root. Or imagine a childhood friend, someone who once shared your dreams. But as you rise, they stall. Instead of being inspired, they grow bitter. They crack jokes at your expense. They share your secrets. They slowly erode the trust you spent years building. Why? Not because they truly hate you, but because they hate how your growth reminds them of where they feel stuck. Jealousy doesn't simply break relationships. It poisons them. It turns admiration into resentment. And sometimes people don't betray you out of hatred. They do it because they can't stand not being you. But not all betrayal stems from jealousy. Some of the deepest cuts come from something else entirely. The thirst for control. That's where power struggles begin. Not all betrayal is emotional or envious. Some betrayals are strategic. They are about dominance. Carl Jung believed that within many relationships there are silent power dynamics at play. Some people only feel secure when they're the one holding the reins. And when they sense you stepping into your own power, they panic. Think back. Have you ever had a boss or a friend or even a partner who supported you when you were quiet? But the moment you spoke up or shined too brightly, they turned against you. That's no coincidence. That's a warning sign. They never saw you as an equal. They saw you as someone to keep beneath them. Let's take a common example. You begin to excel at work, maybe even surpass your manager. Instead of celebrating your growth, they begin nitpicking, micromanaging, taking credit for your efforts, or even sabotaging opportunities behind the scenes. Why? Because your confidence threatens their control. Now think about a controlling partner or friend. At first, they seem helpful, protective, but once you begin setting boundaries, making choices on your own, gaining independence, their tone shifts. They withdraw affection, or use guilt, or go silent, all to remind you who they think should have the upper hand. Control wrapped in care is still control, and betrayal born from power always leaves a deeper bruise. But there is one final form of betrayal we must face, the kind that comes not from others, but from within ourselves. Let's turn to that next dot. Control is fragile, and when your independence threatens that control, some people don't adjust. They attack. Let's continue from there. Carl Jung described power struggles as unconscious battles between egos. When someone builds their sense of worth on having control over others, your personal growth becomes a direct threat. They no longer feel powerful when you don't rely on them. So what do? They retaliate, but not always directly. It can start subtly. They make comments that seem supportive on the surface, but carry a hidden sting, like a compliment laced with doubt, or a suggestion wrapped in discouragement. They create emotional drama to cloud your decisions. They might even flip the script. Suddenly, you are the problem. You are the one hurting them. And before you know it, you are being guilt-tripped for simply standing your ground. Have you ever felt like someone only liked you when you were unsure of yourself, when you leaned on them for approval or guidance? The moment you started thinking for yourself, the mood shifted. That's not love. That's control dressed as care. So how do you protect yourself from these kinds of betrayals? First, recognize the power games. If someone only supports you when you are dependent on them, that is a warning sign. Stand firm in your values. Do not let manipulation distort your reality. Trust your choices, even when someone tries to twist them. And most importantly, choose relationships where your strength is celebrated, not seen as a threat. Because the truth is, people who betray you to maintain control were never really on your team. They liked you best when you were easier to manage, not when you started growing into your full potential. And yet, there is another form of betrayal, even more insidious. One that has nothing to do with power or jealousy. One that comes from a place deep within the human psyche. It's called shadow projection. Carl Jung called it the shadow self, the part of our personality we reject, the darker aspects we try to hide, our flaws, our fears, our desires. We push them down. We deny them, but they don't disappear. Instead, we start to see them in others. Sometimes people betray us not because of who we are, but because of who they are afraid to admit they are. Imagine this. A friend who lies often suddenly accuses you of being dishonest. Or someone who secretly envies you calls you the jealous one. They are not describing you. They are projecting the parts of themselves they refuse to face. Maybe you have a friend who constantly gossips. Then one day they turn on you. They accuse you of spreading rumors, even though you have done nothing. Why? Because they are seeing their own behavior reflected in you. But instead of facing the mirror, they blame you for what they cannot accept in themselves. Or maybe you are in a relationship with someone who keeps checking your phone, asking where you've been, doubting your loyalty even though you've been nothing but faithful. That kind of suspicion often comes from guilt. They are hiding something, and by accusing you, they avoid confronting it. Jung believed this is the mind's way of protecting itself. Instead of acknowledging their own darkness, they invent an enemy. They betray you first so they don't have to see the truth about themselves. They lie so they assume you do. They cheat so they accuse you. They feel insecure so they claim you are the one who envies them. And in the end, their betrayal is not a reflection of your actions. It is a projection of their own hidden shadows. So how do you protect yourself here? You must learn to recognize projection. If the accusations come out of nowhere, if they feel disconnected from reality, chances are they're not about you. They are about the accuser. Do not take it personally. What they say reveals more about their inner world than it ever could about yours. Now, as we move forward, there's one final truth to face. Sometimes the greatest betrayal doesn't come from others. It comes from within. Let's look at what it means to betray yourself. Some betrayals are rooted in fear. Others come from projection. But the most chilling of all is when the betrayal is cold, deliberate, and calculated. This is the narcissistic betrayal, the one that doesn't happen by accident. It is intentional, strategic, icy in its precision. A narcissist does not see you as a person. They see you as a resource, something useful, something to be used. At first, they are charming. They make you feel seen, valued, important. They build you up, but it is not real connection. It is bait. And once they get what they came for, they vanish. Or worse, they betray you without a second thought. They lack empathy. Your pain does not register. If betraying you benefits them, they will do it, without guilt, without remorse. Because to them, it is not personal. It is business. Maybe you had a friend like this, one who only ever called when they needed something, a favor, money, emotional support. But when you reached out in your time of need, silence, and later you learn, they were spreading lies, taking credit for your work, undermining your reputation. Why? Because you were never a friend to them. You were a function, a source of help, nothing more. Or maybe it was a colleague. They cheered for you in public, acted like your ally. But when the moment came, they used your ideas, took the promotion, left you behind, not out of jealousy, but because it served them. And to a narcissist, loyalty is disposable. This kind of betrayal cuts the deepest, because it makes you question everything. Was any of it real? Did they ever care? But here's the truth. Their actions say nothing about your worth. They only reveal their own emptiness. So how do you protect yourself from this? Stop making excuses for people who only show up when it benefits them. Pay attention. Trust what you see, not what you want to believe. Set clear boundaries. Refuse to be used just because you are kind. And if someone has betrayed you once for personal gain, know this, they will likely do it again. Narcissistic betrayal hurts because it feels like you were never truly seen, never truly valued. But here's the perspective shift. You didn't lose someone loyal. They lost someone who genuinely cared. Betrayal is painful. It shakes your trust. It wounds your heart. It makes you question your judgment. But it is not the end. It is the beginning of clarity, because every act of betrayal is a revelation. It shows you who someone really is, not who they pretend to be. And in that truth, you find your power, you will heal, you will grow. And the question is not whether. Betrayal will happen. It's how you respond to it. Will you let it close your heart? Or will you let it sharpen your insight? Make you wiser, stronger, clearer about who deserves your loyalty. Move forward with your eyes open. Trust slowly, observe deeply, and never hesitate to walk away from those who treat your loyalty like a transaction. Because in the end, the right people will never betray you. Not out of fear, not out of jealousy, not for control, and never for personal gain. If this message spoke to something inside you, if you felt seen, heard, or understood, do one simple thing. Support this journey. Like this video. Subscribe to the Stoic Crown channel. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, and leave a comment below. Let us know which part resonated the most with you, because your voice, your experience, and your wisdom matter here, and together we'll keep growing forward, one truth at a time.